Three, two, one. What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, the Lo-Fi Horror Guy. Welcome to another episode of the Lo-Fi Horror Guys growing on you live. Today, Mr. David Weiner is going to be the guest on the show here. So excited! I cannot wait. We're gonna be digging into his newest features, In Search of Darkness 1 and 2. I just recently backed the second one. I can't be more excited. This is going to be so cool to talk with him. I cannot wait. We're going to have a really cool show today. We're going to talk, some horror, some origins, some fun things, some here's and there's. So, let's see. Here you are.
Here.
All
Here we
right,
go.
David, how are you
Here
doing,
he is.
sir?
Here he is. How are you?
I am
Modern
good.
technology.
Isn't this something else? It's absolutely crazy. You can just connect with people that fast, face to face.
Yeah. Sorry for the shaky. I'm trying to situate it so I don't have to wiggle it the whole time.
Ah, it's
How you
it's
doing,
it's
sir?
okay.
How you doing, sir? Thank you for having me.
I am good. I am good. How about you? I am so appreciative of your time and you being here today.
I'm great. I see my
Let's see here. Now we're freezing up. Oh, there we go.
like. I can't handle technology. Oh, this whole. I'm like I don't want to be like my mom because my mom's like she spends the entire interview like this. Can you hear me now? Okay. All right.
Nice. That is funny. That's great. Well, it looks great. It's a great shot. So
Here, we'll do
we're
this
rolling.
so we can get the poster.
The
in.
poster?
All right, here we go.
Nice. Awesome.
There we go.
Well, first of all, like I said, thank you so much for taking the time today. Super cool of you. I'm a huge fan of your work, huge fan of your stuff. Here on Growing on You Live, basically, at first we have a couple of icebreaker questions, just something to start it out. And then the remainder of the interview is about you and your work, your craft.
Okay.
And then I have one finale that I wrote specifically for you, David. If you're ready, we're gonna dig right into it, sir.
Let's do it, sir.
All right, first off, let me ask you, my wife and I do some traveling, and if her and I were coming around your area, what would be a local food staple or a local restaurant that we would have to stop by?
Oh, well, I live in Los Angeles.
Yep.
I live in the Glendale area of Los Angeles.
Okay.
I'm going to do one more thing because this is going to drive me crazy. There we go. All right. There we go. All right.
Beautiful.
Food.
Yep.
I haven't gone out much lately, so all sorts of restaurants are coming to my brain.
Okay.
Well, I'm very fortunate because we have lots of Middle Eastern food where I live. This is sort of like the capital of like falafels and
Ooh-wee.
but I'm going to go Cuban. There's a place called Porto's, and it's a small chain around here, but they have the most amazing Cubano sandwiches and potato balls and pastries. And I got to go now. I got to go eat that. It's delicious.
All right.
You're making me think about it. But yeah, the food, we're very fortunate that we have tremendous amounts of food around here that is all incredibly delicious.
Awesome.
And yeah, Indian food, Cuban food, Middle Eastern food, American food too.
Sure. Are you finding that you're losing out on some of these spots with everything going on right now? Are they having to shut down, losing businesses, or are there some still sticking around?
Bits and pieces. A lot of the places that I normally would go to anyway, whenever I do go to, I am more than happy to pay a generous tip when I pick up my food. There's a local Thai place. You would think Thai food is dime a dozen. And I found that there's no other Thai place like the one down the street from me. It's just perfect.
Awesome.
I don't want them to go out of business. So whenever we do takeout from them, I'm happy to just drop extra cash in the jar as if I had gone more often
Sure.
in the first place.
Sure. Awesome. Okay. Very cool. I appreciate that answer. And hopefully we get over that way and we can check out some of these spots for sure.
Yeah.
Sound good. So now let me ask you, if you and I were making a horror movie and I said, David, look, what I need here is I want you to create the villain. I want to come up with, are we going to have a monster? Is it going to be a zombie movie? Is it going to be like a poltergeist? What are we going to do if you were coming up with a villain right now for a horror movie?
Well, it's not original because I'm drafting off of one of my all-time favorite villains, and that would be the xenomorph from Alien.
Oh yes.
And the reason why that is my answer is because it evolves. It's not just one note.
Sure.
It has multiple stages. It's always surprising you. It's getting bigger and nastier, even though it starts pretty nasty from the get-go.
Right.
But once you think you know what it is, it becomes something else. And that's one of the genius charms of H.R. Giger's creation. That's in starting in 1979, Ridley
Sure.
Scott's Alien.
Sure. Now, would it be something where you would want to do a sequel, or would you want to do kind of your own take on something and and take little bits and pieces and make an original piece?
If I could make my own monster,
Mm-hmm.
and my own monster movie, it would probably be. Listen, sequels are fun if you have. Sequels are challenging. Imagine
Right.
imagine, and I'm drafting on sci-fi now, but imagine Star Wars is your all-time favorite movie, and someone hands you the keys to a Star Wars movie.
Right.
One part of you is like, oh my gosh, I get to do that, or a Bond movie or something like that.
Yeah.
But then there's another part where you're like, I don't want to ruin it for the fan and me.
Right.
So I would have to go with an original choice because fundamentally all these movies sort of stand on the shoulders of what came before them, and you take elements of what inspired you. That's kind of part of the theme that I have in this part 2 of In Search of Darkness, which we could talk about later. But
Absolutely.
there's a definite element of the filmmakers of the 80s were drawing on their inspirations from their own childhood that they loved, and whether they were remaking it, whether it was The Blob or The Fly or The Thing or Invaders from Mars, with Tobe Hooper,
Mm-hmm.
you would still be going straight to these original moments that really just frightened you and inspired you.
Right.
So there you go. So I would be creating my own original piece, which of course would be a jigsaw puzzle of the things I love.
Sure. Okay. Awesome. I love it. So now digging into, first off, I wanted to ask about your horror origins. So I know you grew up with monster movies and the Universal monsters and your love for Creature from the Black Lagoon. One particular story that I wanted to ask that intrigued me was your first watch that of a certain horror movie that you had at a friend's house. I wanted to dig into this story a little bit and what all that entailed and the movie that you watched.
I absolutely grew up in an era I was born in '68, so I was a '70s kid and an early '80s kid, and by the time cable came around and everyone had cable in their house, we didn't. My parents were like, no, we're not going to get that. I was still watching. I watched Halloween when it first came on TV on a little black and white TV, and it still rocked my world and scared the crap out of me.
Same.
But I had all my friends, listen, my friends were my friends, genuine friends. But there was the Atari friend, there was the cable friend, there was
Right.
the friend that had this and the friend who had that.
Yeah. Okay.
I need to sleep over at my friend Sergio's house because Sergio's got not only cable downstairs, but cable in his room. He can watch anything he wants. And the parents won't know, and the parents don't care.
Yeah.
Those are the great parents, and that's the kid that I want to watch. And
Yeah.
I cannot remember to this day if it was strategic or it just was organic, but it was the first Friday the 13th movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched that at literally it came on at 1:32 in the morning, and I was, it's a sleepover. I was the kid who everyone always fell asleep before me because I was, I just was excited to be at a sleepover. And anyway, I just remember I watched that beginning to end, and then I couldn't sleep at all after that because I was absolutely scared shitless. But that was stuff that I was probably about 12 or 13 years old. No, I don't think I was 13. I think I was 12 years old when I saw that. And so maybe 13. Anyway, I digress.
Okay.
So that was that experience because that made that not only is about the movie Friday the 13th, it's more about the experience about so many of us that we get this wonderful opportunity to hang with friends. The parents aren't around. You're sort of doing something illicit but not illegal.
Sure.
And you have this incredible experience. There's this one video that's like my all-time favorite video. It's called, I always forget the name of the band, Wolfie's Just Fine. And it's called A New Beginning. You've got to seek it out. It's a great tune just by itself, but they structure it around this little kid who goes with his older brother to his friend's house to watch Friday the 13th. I don't think it is is it a New Beginning? See, I should know because I've done all these movies. Which is the one where you have the couple that have sex in the woods, and then she's well, you're like they're all that way. But anyway, she gets the shears in the face, and then the
5.
boyfriend gets,
Yeah.
yeah, that's 5. So it is in the beginning, and it's structured all around that,
Mm.
and
Oh, wow.
it brings this nostalgic tear of joy to my eye watching that video because the song is so great. But it's about this kid who thinks he gets to see something that he shouldn't be seeing, and then he's in love with this beautiful girl, and they're having sex, and his eyes are like bing, and then of course Jason comes, and then it's just, he's warped for life, like we are in a good way.
Right, right. Wow, that's wild. That's awesome. I'm gonna have to check out that video. I've never heard of it before.
What's yours? What's your first experience like that?
Well, it's funny that you bring up as far as with seeing something that was a little shocking. I had one particular buddy. Like I had kind of a tight group. One kid was more into skating and one kid was more into music. But my one buddy Ryan, him and I were always watching horror movies, and we'd have sleepovers and different things. And specifically, I can say the one is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I had never seen it before. Actually, the first time that we went to rent it, his parents rented us. It's like a documentary. I don't know if you remember seeing that. It wasn't the actual movie, so we were real bummed out. So we've been waiting a long time to watch it. Finally, we got it, and I got about halfway through, and I was literally physically ill. I had to go home. I couldn't even stay and hang out with my friends because I just hadn't seen anything like that, and it was so dirty and grimy, and just some of the kills are happening, and the noises, and it was terribly terrifying experience in my life.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre for me is probably among my top 2 or 3 all-time scariest movie experiences. I'm not really that scared now, but when I first, because of the sound design, the implication versus what they show, and the sort of the cinema verite, you feel like it's a documentary,
Right.
and that's why it's so scary, because there's so much unknown, and you go into this inner sanctum, and it's just so warped.
Right.
But yeah, I very much felt the same way about that, and I've said this about Halloween, and it's the same thing with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I have this compulsion where if something scares the absolute crap out of me, I want to face my fear and confront it, and I get around to getting back to it again.
Right.
And I need to watch it again just so I know what's happening next. I see how they did it. I look at it from an analytical point of view, just so I'm no longer scared. Can I curse on this?
Oh yeah,
scared
absolutely.
Shitless, scared shitless about these movies, and so I get that much more of a great appreciation of the director's point of view. Toby Hooper has said many a time that Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a comedy, and
right.
I saw no comedy whatsoever. There's comedy through and through in Texas Chainsaw 2 and beyond, but that one I had to see it again from his point of view to understand why he thought that was funny, because I did not.
No, absolutely not. And touching on that, let me ask, after your initial horror experience began and you started pushing more and more into, your uncomforts and the zones where you're just, your horror limits, what were 3 horror scenes that absolutely just push you beyond comfort?
Beyond comfort. Well, the shunting in society is the first thing that comes to mind.
Oh yeah.
If there's one sequence designed to make you uncomfortable, Brian Yuzna's society shunting scene is definitely one of them. That's the first thing that pops in my brain.
What an odd movie, yeah.
Well, that in particular is one that I discovered later, because when that first came out, I thought that the box did not tell you what that movie was really about, and whatever they were trying to sell, this sort of like 90210 weird experience, was not something that I wasn't buying that day, or any day when I walked by that box at the video store.
Right.
So when it was finally brought to my attention, people were like, "Oh, you have to see it because." I'm like, "Really? What? Who?
Yeah.
What? The guy who produced Reanimator? I didn't even know he did something."
Yeah.
There you go.
Right.
So
okay.
That's definitely a worth a watch and investigation. 2 more things that bothered me and pushed me beyond my comfort level. I want to give you answers, but I have to think about it, because you're also talking to a person who's now made 2 4-hour movies about 80s horror.
right.
And all I see is like, this shot's perfectly fine for me, but it's just over the top and gross. A lot of the Italian horror. I've been living in rent free in the brains of Dario Argento and Lamberto Bava and Lucio Fulci lately.
Okay.
One thing that I decided I did a in the new movie we've got a chapter on it. We've got a bunch of Italian horror movies,
Ooh,
and I have
okay.
a very concentrated chapter on Italian horror. And one element that we touch on is their obsession with eye trauma
Oh,
and just
boy.
and zombie was the first thing I ever saw of Italian horror movie where you have that slow shot of the she's screaming, the zombies pulling her towards this splinter, and it's just they're not going to stop, and it's going,
Yeah.
and they're going to cut away, right? They're going to quit. They're not. No, no. Okay, so it's touching, but then
That's
he's going to cut away. No, he's just like, here's how it goes, and here's it goes, and
yeah,
there
yeah,
you go.
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
All
that is
right, I'm already
absolutely that's a
grossed out.
genuine that's a genuine moment too, as far as, one of the first times with even, being scared and things. Seeing zombie in that specific scene was one of those things where it was just like I can definitely agree. That was certainly a moment where things get, it was like, this is going a little far. I don't know if
Yeah,
I'm ready
yeah.
for this,
I
but I
love
loved it.
gore. I love all this stuff. Like, I think it's probably apparent that I have an appreciation for this. Otherwise, I wouldn't spend so much time living it,
Sure.
talking about it, making movies about it, being the editor of Famous Monsters, which is more classic monsters, but still just living in that world. But
Hmm.
listen, I have my own personal limits, it's funny when I got to talk to Tom Savini for the new movie, and he said, "You guys might be surprised about this, but I believe less is more. It's much more effective. I'm the guy who showed everything, and less is more, and that's how I think it
Wow.
should be done.
Huh.
Um,
Wow.
and
That's
and I agree with him. I agree with him, and it goes back to sorry to interrupt, but just to
no.
finish that thought, it's like going back to Texas Chainsaw. It's just like everyone says, "Oh my God, what are you talking about, Leslie Moore?" They put her on a meat hook, and you saw it, and you're like, "Well, no, you didn't see it.
Did yeah.
It was
Right.
all implied."
Hmm.
He lifts her, it cuts away, you come back, and she's on.
Hmm.
And yes, she's on a meat hook, but you never see it happen. But
Right.
your mind bridges that gap, and it's that much more horrifying because of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For sure. For sure. And
There's a third one, but I don't have a third one yet. If it comes later, I'll jump it in.
sure. Yeah. No. No. That's good. I know you have lots of things that are jumbling through your mind too, as well as even if you want to mention on like Friday the 13th when you initially saw that. What was one of the moments that stood by that was like, all right, I might want to turn this off.
Well, no, I never wanted to turn it off at all.
Okay.
I was scared. I was scared shitless, but I didn't want to turn it off. When I want to turn it off, it's more about I don't know. I never want to turn off a horror movie because I've never been so grossed out where I said I can't watch the rest of this.
Yeah.
It's usually
Okay.
about the fear and not the aversion to the gore because I know the gore is fleeting. I know
Yeah.
the gore is temporary.
Right.
Um, Although I will now throw in my third, Takashi Miike's
Oh
audition
yes. Yes.
was people had said this is good and I won't tell. I had the perfect experience with that. People said this is good. I won't tell you why. Just watch it. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, this is like online dating. It's just what's going on here. This is really taking its time. Is you sure? What are
Yeah.
we did I pick the wrong movie?
Right.
and
Right.
then
Yeah.
and then it reveals its hand and then you're just like oh my gosh and so i I'm sure your fans and the people who follow you and know about audition but I won't say
Oh
anything.
yeah.
All I will know is that just goes and keeps on going and is absolutely relentless and that's the genius but for me it was like I will when's this going to end because it's going on
Right.
forever.
Right. Okay. And so, next up, I wanted to touch on, before recently, with your work in Search of Darkness, you've been successfully in the spotlight for years for writing, editing, and even interviewing celebrities yourself. So I just wanted, you to tell us about, how those experiences were and how they served kind of as like on the job training for the project of In Search of Darkness.
Well, I've had many years of experience doing interviews,
Right.
whether it's on the red carpet, whether it's in a on a set, whether it's on the phone, whether it's in person, at a junket or whatever it may be. Um, and I've been doing that many years. I
Mm-hmm.
probably started doing that in 96,
Oh, wow.
96.
Okay.
So I've been doing it for a while, and some jobs are more concentrated where I do it a lot, and some, I had an opportunity here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it's something that I absolutely enjoy.
Yeah.
And there's some elements of it to get to the nuances of it that I don't enjoy. I hate being on the red carpet because you're jockeying for position. You're trying to get a bite or two. You have to ask obvious questions because they want it easy
Right.
because there's all sorts of distraction and stuff like that. I've had some interesting red carpet experiences, but the first red carpet I ever was on was the red carpet for Kundun, Kundun, the Martin
Oh.
Scorsese movie.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So,
Wow.
so my first ever interview, I got to interview Martin Scorsese, and it's been downhill ever since.
Oh my
but
God. Wow.
but so like pinch me. That's amazing, at least for me. And so through the years, whether it was for Entertainment Tonight, whether it was for Entertainment Asylum, which was prior to that, which was AOL's planting the flag on the internet. That's how old I am, right?
Wow. Okay.
And whether it's Entertainment Tonight, I get to sit with Harrison Ford, or whether it's, In Search of Darkness, Famous Monsters, all these things in between, The Hollywood Reporter, LA Weekly. I have this wonderful opportunity to me, we all want to hear the nuggets. We want to hear the thing that you haven't heard
Right.
before,
Yeah. Same.
because they do the rounds, they say a lot of the same things. But to me, it's if I have time with someone, that's when you get a great interview
Mm-hmm.
because it gives them an opportunity to sort of relax and get tangential. And then you go down the rabbit hole and you get some really good interview material.
Sure.
And if you have a very specific agenda about how you want to shape that material, that's the best way to do an interview because then you've got a bit of a focus, Or if it's something where they're promoting a project, you want to approach it where you can talk to them, but you ask them what they've not been asked before, or ask it in a different way, or frame it in a different way, or frame it in something fun, but make that as something that can promote their project while talking about whatever they'd rather talk about.
Sure.
And that makes a big difference. And so I can obviously go for a very long time because I've had a lot of wonderful experiences talking to people. But to me,
Yeah.
ultimately, what was great and is great about In Search of Tomorrow, In Search of Darkness 1 and 2, is these are interviews that I arrange for us. So I'm not getting them at a convention. I'm not getting them at a junket. I'm not getting them on the red carpet. They're coming to us in an agreed sit down for, an hour or more. I mean, I sat down with Robert Englund for 3 hours at his house. Not
Damn. Wow.
not several weeks ago, because a lot of this stuff because of COVID was under the wire.
Oh, right.
But he was very, very generous, and he said, "Yeah, come on down, let's do this." And
Wow.
he loves to talk, and so he's a great storyteller. He's very descriptive, and it's a real treat. I don't know.
Man.
Have I answered your
That
question?
absolutely, absolutely, and it's so cool. And these next few questions we're going to start digging into the In Search of Darkness series. But it is cool, to hear that too, especially just because I just recently backed the second movie. I know tons of people that are on here that I follow and follow me as well have been posting up so much, and I can't wait. It looks like such a really, really cool collection. So starting to dig into about these series. First off, tell me about the title, In Search of Darkness. Where did this come from? What was the inspiration with that?
Well, I live in a daylight world. I'm always in search of darkness. That's a really bad joke. Um, the title comes from Robin Block, who's the executive producer of all these movies. He's the guy who it's all his brainchild. It all came from him.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the one who came up with it. But I think it's great because I think it sort of this is a journey, and this was always meant to be an exploration of the decade, and it was always meant to be a survey of the decade. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of movies came out during that time. It was an
Oh yeah.
explosion of creativity, and so because of that, you can't you can't cover it all. You can't talk about it all. You could try, but if you really want to do it real deep dive justice, then this is not the type of project that you do that.
Right.
This is more of a remember this. Did you know about that? Here's some information you may have known. Here's some information you didn't know. Here's a reason why and context that this all means something to us for different reasons, and usually for very personal reasons. And for me, In Search of Darkness is a journey. But for me personally, my mission statement is to take all these movies that are clearly, some are, you've got The Shining here, you've got Chud there. No one's going to disagree what the level of those movies are. But for me, I bring it to an even playing field. Yeah, we all love The Shining for different reasons. We all love Chud for different reasons. So don't put Chud in the mud.
Right.
Listen.
Okay.
Listen, I will reveal now that I did not get Bud the Chud in the movie, but that's something that I would have liked to have done.
Oh,
and maybe
man.
In Search of Darkness 3, because the thing is, there's just not enough time to do everything.
Right.
But to me, we all love these movies for different reasons, and horror is special and different from other genres in that you get sort of like an excuse clause, like a dog ate my homework clause. It's like, yeah, I know, but I know it's all crumpled up, but I still handed it in, teacher. It's like that's what 80s horror is all about. We all, it's a little dog-eared, but we love it, and these are the reasons why.
It's funny you bring up Bud the Chud. The last video I just put up on YouTube, we were talking about little, less known part twos of horror movies. I had on a guest that's a follower of the page on Instagram, and Bud the Chud was my first favorite one that hardly gets mentioned. I love that movie. It is so ridiculous. It's so different from the first one, but geez, it is just such a great time. I love it. And
it's called Bud the Chud.
right.
That's all you need. That's your price of admission right there.
Right. So from day one now, from preparation in these, was it always the plan to have it where you wanted to lay it out from 80 going all the way to 89, or was there other ideas initially that you wanted to portray as far as the layout for the movie?
Well, Robin initially said to me, he wanted to go year by year, movie by movie. And I said, that sounds very cool. It's a lot of movies. How are we going to do that? How are we going to structure that? Also, how much time can we spend on this movie? Because it's just going to feel like, you're just like hitting the fast forward button, through a decade.
Right.
So a lot of hard decisions had to be made in terms of what we presented, what we brought to the final cut. It was never intended to be 4 hours long. It was always meant to be about a 90-minute to 2-hour documentary. But the structure demanded more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for me, the repetition of going movie to movie to movie to movie to movie one year, and then movie to movie to movie to movie another year, while is really cool, gets a little tiresome. So I wanted to make sure that we put larger context chapters for two different reasons. One, you could explore the concepts of the genre more, but also you get to strategically add more movies, even if you don't focus on a movie. So I can put Bud the Chud, Chud 2, Bud the Chud in there, in a verbal reference or a visual reference, if contextually possible, if they're talking about a particular thing, I think I've frozen. Can you hear me there?
Yeah, right. Uh-oh.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, the picture froze. Let's see here. I see you now.
All right.
Are you back?
There we are. Did you hear me the whole time, or where did you lose me?
Yep.
Okay, the visual reference or the verbal reference gives an opportunity to cover more ground, and so that was really my intention. So from the beginning, Robin wanted to cover as many movies as possible and have this be an absolute nostalgia joyride / love letter to the decade, but there needs to be strategic decisions. And one of the things that I made, which was not a popular decision with my own self, but I felt it needed to be done, was because there was so much material, I decided to focus on domestic American, North American movies only for the first film.
Right.
And a lot of people were like, well, where's the Italian? Where's the world horror? Where's the, J horror? Where's anything else? And I'm
Right.
just like, why isn't it a series? And I'm like, this is a Kickstarter project where it was supposed to be 90 minutes to 2 hours.
Right.
I'm already at 4 hours, and I've got to make some really tough decisions about what can make it in and what can't.
Right.
And so I'll say for the record, I feel everybody's pain that Shocker didn't make the first one, or
Yeah.
City of the Living Dead didn't make it in the
Oh
first
man.
one.
Yeah. So
There's so
good.
many great movies. There's so many great movies. Well,
Right.
why didn't you spend enough time on this movie? It's well because there's no time to deep dive on any of these things. And
Right.
so the idea is to, if you have the person from the movie, you have a nice little insight, you got a little package, and then you move on to the next. What's cool and the conceit about the movie is that you can have someone like anyone, Joe Dante, John Carpenter, Mick Garris, Caroline Williams, Heather Langenkamp, Barbara Crampton, talking about not only their movies, but what they love or what really impacted them or influenced them.
Right.
That's what's so cool about this project for me. But we're still never going to get to everything. And so that's why we made a whole second movie.
Right, right. Well, I think as fans, and collectors as myself, I think or maybe I should just speak, selfishly and say, initially when I heard that it was a 4-hour documentary, some people were like, God, that's kind of long. How's this going to be laid out? How's it going to be done? It made me feel like it was going to be a passion project. It made me feel like it wasn't something that some big studio was paying for, and they were going to have some basic shit that I've already heard over and over, and it's going to be crammed in 2 hours, and you're going to get, maybe a couple of things that you hadn't heard. That was what was so cool is I had heard that it's 4 hours, 4+ hours. And, diving into that, I just thought it was like one of those things. And now having a second one, I'm super, super excited. And a lot of my friends, we've been talking about, the series and when the first movie came out, I was a little hesitant at first. And I ended up backing it. And God, I'm so glad that I did, because these movies are turning out absolutely amazing. And now the second one looks just as fucking cool. So,
well, thank you. Well, all I could say about the second one, I could say a lot of things, but all I could say fundamentally about the second one is if you liked the first, you'll like the second, because it's a continuation.
mm-hmm.
So all the things that you loved about the first or liked or appreciated, it's now, listen, you get to keep on going, but now we expand the scope. And I threw in a couple curveballs in a good way. For example, like, we didn't have Robert Englund last time,
Right.
but we covered a bunch of nightmare films.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's a bit of my dilemma. It's like, well, now I've got Robert Englund this time around, and he's happy to be here. He's like, what can I do for you? Let's talk about movies.
Right.
But I don't want to just go back and do another Nightmare on Elm Street segment for the first movie, because that was done.
Mm-hmm.
We covered that.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided that Robert Englund, Tom Savini, Linnea Quigley, Nancy Allen, each would have their own little and I say little, they get their own chapter.
Right.
So it's them talking about their projects, their careers, their experiences.
Oh shit.
You get to cover the ground of Nightmare This or Dressed to Kill That, which we covered, that kind of thing.
Wow.
Tom Savini, Creepshow, we already did, but we get it from their perspective in the context of their career and with a focus on 80s. And
Damn.
so that's a way to sort of approach that. And
Wow,
so
yeah, that's sick.
So I'm glad you're smiling. You're actually the first person I'm telling that to.
Awesome, man.
That's kind of,
I can't wait.
these sort of career retrospectives, where I wanted to be able to, that was a challenge. I'm like, I want to keep on going with the format we're doing, with more movies, more material, brand new interviews, material that didn't make the first, but no one's ever heard before, now gets to be applied to all these other chapters and individual movies. But there's that redundancy that I needed to figure out, not how to make redundant. And so, even if we're talking about Creepshow, I'm making sure that there's absolutely no clips that we use from the first film. It's all brand new, everything that you see. So if to take an experience, whether you're talking about Dressed to Kill or Creepshow or, anything like that. So I'm excited to share this because I think it's real fun. I think it's a deeper dive. And if you like the first one, this is kind of the same thing, ideally in a good way. It's jam packed. I like last time when I delivered a 5 hour cut and we cut it to about 4 hours and change, literally because the format of the Blu-ray and the DVD dual layer could only hold so much information, and we didn't want to
Oh,
double
okay.
didn't it was a Kickstarter project. We didn't have the money to do a two-disc set.
Right.
So that was why we sort of ended that amount of time.
Okay.
We're doing the same this time around, and I delivered another 5+ hour cut, and I had listen, my job is to
Jesus.
create content that I love, and then I had to kill a lot of babies. And so there's a lot of movie segments that we did. I'm just like, it doesn't fit because of X, Y, and Z. Oh,
Yeah.
Sophie's choice. What do I get rid of? You
Yeah,
know?
right, right. Well, I was going to ask, and I mean, it's cool that you dug into that because I was going to ask, as far as, some of the people that, that you're having in this movie, Tom Savini, i.e., or Robert Englund, you've covered a lot of this stuff in the first movie, and how are you going to portray that? So you already answered the question, so that's awesome. I appreciate that.
Listen, I rarely toot my own horn about how spectacular I am because I'm not that type of person. But I'm pretty proud of myself that I sort of came up with a pretty basic, sort of structure, because it just solved a lot of problems for me. Because I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
listen, because a lot of people are like, well, all right, so you've got Nancy Allen, but you did a whole thing on Dress to Kill. So you're going to do Dress to Kill again, or are you just going to not do it? And I'm thinking to
right.
myself, well, it's a crime to have Nancy Allen sitting there and not talk about that, But then again,
Right.
we also get to talk about Poltergeist 3, and we get to talk about Carrie. And I'm like, well,
Ooh,
Carrie's
wee.
not, that's 70s. That's
Yeah,
70s. That doesn't fit. How do I
yeah.
sneak Carrie in and her perspective on Carrie and how it fits everything? Oh, well, if I
Man.
do a career retrospective and her thoughts about Carrie and leading up to Just to Kill, leading up to Poltergeist 3, leading up to a bunch of the projects in and around her career of that time, that's how I can satisfy the film fan in me, the film fans who get to watch this, and have it make sense in the context of this movie.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I'm glad I was able to accomplish that because it solved my problem.
Sweet, sweet. What can you what did you take from the process of making the first In Search of Darkness to make the sequel even better? Was there a learning curve that you had to take on that, from working on the second one, you're like, okay, I gotta do this here, and we're gonna, touch up a couple of things? Always making the craft
Uh,
better.
yeah, well, that's a very good question because there was very much do we do something radically different, or if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of approach to part two. And
Right.
it was really kind of a if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. And we had our methods. Excuse me. We had our methods. We cemented our methods to make it a smoother process behind the scenes in terms of production, in terms of how we got people, our editing process. Because I edit with Samuel Way, who edited this film with me.
Yeah. Okay.
And then when I say with me, he's doing all the heavy lifting and I'm just telling him what to do. But it's like you can't have one without the other. And
Yeah.
he's the guy who deserves all the credit for making this fly and make it feel real. Like once you're invested in something, he's like, you like that? Well, we're on to the next in a good
Hmm.
way.
Right.
And he keeps it flowing. Um, but a lot of it had to do with my approach to the interviews and having a better sense of what the end product would be, so I can front load the approach with the movies I wanted to make sure that we covered this time around, the topics that I wanted to explore this time around, all that stuff. Last time I had a very concentrated plan, but there was a huge amount of material and content to cover. So a lot of it wasn't until about halfway through those interviews that I realized what I had as content was something that I can turn into a movie. So the second half of interviews really were more focused to support the first half. Is this
Oh,
too
okay. Right. Right.
granular? Does
Yeah.
that make
No,
sense?
no, no. I understand. Yep.
So for this time around, yeah, um, able to have a more a leaner strategic approach in terms of how I would get my material. But I'm an absolute completist, and I also get more material than I need because I'm like, well, if this doesn't work, I want to be able to compensate with that. And
Sure.
so
Yeah.
that's why I sit down with people minimum of an hour, but the average interview with everybody that I talk to, unless they're looking like they would rather be someplace else, which fortunately most of them, but I keep everyone hostage for easily an hour to 2 hours. And I say one more thing. How about this? One more thing. How about this? But they all
Okay.
people really respond to the fact that they can kind of talk about what they love, and they can
Uh,
talk about their favorites. There's a difference between talking about the projects that they have talked about ad nauseum, and then just
oh
talking
yeah.
about what they love. I mean, being able to sit with Clancy Brown,
Yeah.
who's as much of a sci-fi and a fantasy guy as he is a horror guy. You got Pet Cemetery too, that's early '90s,
Right.
but you've got, he did The Bride,
Yeah.
and but having him talk about like getting all excited about The Keep, or Angel Heart,
Nice.
and having his eyes
Nice.
go wide and just talking, oh, that's so good, and here's what I love about it, altered states,
Oh yeah.
that's the stuff that makes that just gets me all excited that I get to put that stuff in the movie, and I
Sure.
did.
Sure. Okay. Now, with In Search of Darkness 2, if I could ask, do you have one movie that, may have not been, a particular popular movie in the 80s, but it was just one that you personally had to put in?
So many. For me, Humanoids from the Deep. Roger Corman's
Oh
Humanoids
my
from the Deep
God.
has a special place in my heart.
Oh, so good.
Because that's another one of those illicit afternoons at a friend's house watching it on cable,
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, let's watch this monster
You
movie,"
saw
and
that
then
on
there's,
cable?
I saw that on cable.
Holy
Yeah.
shit. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I saw that. I saw that at my friend Glenn's house in the afternoon when his parents, who knows where they were, and we watched it that afternoon. And
Oh.
all the sex and gore and violence, and we listen. We were watching. We knew what we were signing up for when we watched a movie called
Right.
Humanoids from the Deep.
The name. Yeah.
So how cool was it that the effects were incredibly amazing? And
Right.
now I have Steve Johnson, the effects guru, in our movie as well, in Search of Darkness Part 2. So I got to talk about
Oh
Humanoids from the
man.
Deep with Steve Johnson, who not only worked on the costumes, but he also was in costume.
Yeah.
He's in that movie. And
Oh wow.
he's like, well, you could tell which one I am, and I won't give away how you could tell, but he tells you a movie how you can figure out which one is him. And anyway, so that's a movie that I planned to do for part one, and reluctantly, that's a baby I had to kill
Oh
on
man.
on round one. So round two, I was able to sort of come at it from a different angle, having Steve Johnson there and being able to include it, and that makes there's a level of satisfaction that I get to put that in
Oh
there.
man, that is so awesome. This is absolutely it's exciting me, and I'm gonna get this out as soon as I can because I know all my buddies that are looking forward to this are gonna be loving all of this information as well. So thank you. I have one last.
I
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
what I this is incredibly important here. Please hold. So you've seen Humanoids from the Deep?
Oh
Have
yeah.
you have you seen? Oh yeah. So my all-time favorite moment in that entire movie is the couple is about to have sex in the tent. There you go. There it is. The couple's about to
There it
have
is.
sex in the tent. And there's this great nudity, and you're like, oh, I hope they have enough sex before the mutants come, because you know that's what's coming. And the mutant comes, and he's got for no good reason. He's got a little wooden dummy,
Yeah.
and he's being a ventriloquist, and he's like, "Would you like to see my woodpecker?" But what the moment is the humanoids attack, and you see the dummy look to the left by itself as if it's alive, and that is the
So
greatest moment,
ridiculous.
arguably in
Oh.
80s cinema, because it's so funny, and it's just like,
Oh my God,
all
that
right,
is
sorry,
great.
priorities.
That
Please
is that
continue.
is great. That was that absolutely is. I'm gonna have to watch that again recently, or I'm gonna have to watch that again here soon because man, that movie is so good. It's been a minute. So that concludes our interview. I do have one finale question. But if you want to let everybody know what you have going on, some pitches, some thank yous, anything like that, this is your opportunity there, David.
Sure, yeah, I'll get in pitch mode. I mean, I love when I have the time. I like to interact on social media. Twitter is pretty much my platform.
Okay.
Instagram, I'm on, but I don't spend a lot of time on it. So if you really want to catch some interaction with me, Twitter is the place to go. I have two handles across social media, actually. On Twitter, it's at Tiki Ambassador. But I also have my own genre pop culture site called It Came From Blog.
Hmm.
So if you go to itcamefromblog.com or on socials, whether you're on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, it's at It Came From Blog. And that's just all my sort of my pop culture brain feed. If I think of it, if I think of a poster, if I think of a toy, a collectible, a random thing, I put it on there. I put it on the feed, and I love just talking to people about these things. So, I mean, I get such great joy about putting just some random whatever it is on there, and people are like, "Oh my God, I haven't thought of that since I was a kid. Thank
Right,
you."
right.
That to me brings great joy because it's validation of the goofy things that were just part of our lives that we may have taken for granted, but I get to share that and talk about it, whether it's a lot or just like a like. That to
Right.
me is really satisfying during these days where things are crazy as they can be. It's nice to wallow in the nostalgia of the past, and I clearly do that for a living. So in terms of what am I doing, you got to go to for In Search of Darkness Part Two. That's between now and midnight October. It's a pre-sale where you can go to 80shorrordoc.com and you can get your name in the credits. You can see all sorts of things about the film. There's a whole community that we built on Discord where you get access to a year of this community where every 2 weeks we've got watch parties and Q&As with the likes we've already had, like Jeffrey Combs and Kelly
Yeah.
Maroney and Adrienne Barbeau, and it's very cool because we're getting all these people who are happy to interact with the fans, and we do an interview with them, and then we do a watch party, and sometimes they stick around and do a running commentary. We've been doing that for In Search of Tomorrow as well, which is 80s sci-fi doc. And that's my next project that I'm going to be doing. The
Sweet.
first watch party we had Sam J. Jones, Flash Gordon himself, and he had never before done a feature-length commentary on the movie, and he did it with us.
Oh
He stuck
shit.
around and he did
Whoa,
a
no
feature-length
kidding.
commentary of the movie, and it's just like special things are happening, and it's a
Priceless.
very cool community. We are not a judgmental community. We are very welcoming. We're just happy to share and share the love and passion for all these genres. So these are super special things, and I'm proud to direct people to these things. Because there is lots of coolness happening, and we keep it apolitical, and I don't care what your politics are. It's all aside. It's all about the love of the movies.
Yes.
And 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 lastly, I'll say is, like, now's the time. A lot of people say, well, what, In Search of Darkness Part One is on Shutter. When's this going to be on Shutter? When's it going to be? When am I going to just get the Blu-ray? When am I going to get the disc? We're a small team. This is an absolute labor of love. We put our blood, sweat, and tears on here. So we have no plan for the future. This is it. We're selling In Search of Darkness Part Two. There are no plans for the future. So if, eventually you'll be able to get it somehow by hook or by crook, but if you want it, this is your time. And a lot of times, I can't count how many, if I had a nickel for everyone who said, I wish I'd been part of In Search of Darkness Part One back in that project so I can get the posters, so I can get the enamel pins, so I can get the movie.
Hmm.
We're adding that much more to it now, the soundtrack. Um,
There's a
but the
slipcover
thing
on this
is,
one too, right?
yes, slip cover, booklet, all sorts of just cool things. We have a learning curve. Last time around, we had a problem with a supplier. We rectified that with an American-based distributor who's amazing. That's manufacturing and selling this
Sweet.
stuff, sending this stuff so it doesn't get smushed and destroyed. And it's just like we're a small little company, and we've learned from our mistakes, and we're very proud of our product, anyway, it's a very short window, so now's the time to jump on it. And I really don't know what's happening next with it. All I know is I got to make my next movie, you know.
Sure, sure. You know, and I mean, you touched on that. I guess just a little thing, you know, as far as I've had certain people, like when I first posted that I had gotten, you know, my thing. I did like an unboxing video, and you know, and I was actually a part of on the '80s horror doc. They had me
Yeah,
unboxing
yeah,
the
yeah.
thing and opening it, and I'm like, holy shit! That, you know, I show my wife. I'm like, look at that's me. Like, but you know, I had people messaging me, and they're like, hey, you know, my stuff came all messed up, and it was broken, and da 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 da, and these guys da da da. You know, and I'm like, I don't know. You know, I'm sorry. I'm sure you can get a hold of them. It seems like they're pretty understanding. They're answering a lot of questions online. I myself had an absolutely beautiful experience. All of my friends that I knew that messaged me and told me about it and pushed me into, you know, backing it had the same exact thing. They had, you know, their stuff come intact. Everything is beautiful. I have my poster hanging up, you know, up here. My Blu-ray is, you know, legitimate, you know. So it's one of those things where, you know, for it being a smaller company, you know, there's, you know, lessons to be learned from different things. And I loved that it definitely seemed like, you know, there was an issue that was seen, and you guys, you know, backed on that, and you're like, look, you know, what can we do to fix this? We're going to get it right. And it seemed like you guys definitely did that. So, you know, I really appreciated seeing that too. And I never had anything negative to say. I tried, you know, my hardest to tell people, like, back it, you know, these are cool things happening.
Well, all I could say about that is I'm glad I had a great experience. We all feel the pain of you know, we work so hard on this, and to a faulty product or bad shipping, that is very unfortunate.
Right.
And it's not like we don't care. We care tremendously because
Right.
we value this whole experience, and we want to keep on making these films, and we know and create an experience that goes beyond the documentary. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's real basic math. It's like if you don't care, if you just put a product out there to
Right.
make money and then, you know, disappear, then you're never going to be able to do this stuff again, because that, you know, you get a bad reputation.
Mm-hmm.
So we made sure that everyone who you know, had a product that was faulty or didn't get shipped correctly or whatever it may be, to replace those, and that was at additional cost. But it was that important to us to make sure that everyone at the end was satisfied with what we did. And so, yeah, there are always going to be hiccups along the way.
Right.
You can't satisfy everybody, but the most important thing is that we really do care about that stuff, and we really want everyone to have a really positive experience. And the bigger you grow and you find success, and everyone says, well, you know, how could it be this price, or why wouldn't you do this, or why are you doing it a limited time? It's like, because you want to have the best return on your blood, sweat, and tears investment.
Yeah.
And you also want to be able to give everyone the best thing possible. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's not always going to be the most popular decisions, but we keep the fan as our foundation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, by the fans, for the fans is how we sort of go. That's our motto, really. And you know, I just hope that everyone is satisfied and can share. You know, that's why unboxing videos. The fact that we didn't ask anyone to do an unboxing video, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, others who say, "Oh my God, I've been waiting a million years. Here it is. Oh, I got this. I didn't know there was going to be that in here. Oh, this is too. Oh, this is so cool." Listen, we all love an opening a package, you know, and we want everything to be good in there, and we want to be happy. You know, we want it to be a happy experience, and people sharing their love and excitement for this, and feeling a vested involvement by backing this project, getting their name in the credits, things like that. That's all super important to the whole process. It's not just like, oh, you go to Amazon or you go to this, you buy it, you get it, you're done. And
Right.
this is like an ongoing relationship and cultivation that is important to us, that allows the conversation to continue.
Right.
And I think if it's not evident that we're building something beyond the documentary, and the documentary itself, doing another 4-hour documentary, you know, if our love and passion isn't evident by now, then people aren't going to buy it anytime.
Right. Right.
And
Well, yeah.
that's cool. And that's cool too. Listen,
Yeah.
if you don't want this, don't buy it.
Right.
If you're interested, we're doing everything we can to make it a cool product and a cool experience.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, I was just gonna say, as far as, you know, it's one of those things where there's different companies, like for instance, the next docu that you're working on is like a sci-fi thing, which isn't super, that's not like completely my wheelhouse. But the thing is the product that I got in the end, as far as, what I am paying for and what I'm getting in return, that pushes me into looking at, okay, well, they're doing this sci-fi documentary. I want to see that. I'm going to back that. I'm going to check that out. So, that's what those are the things that I have said and promoted, as far as like, I have nothing to do with, the company or the projects, but I love the passion behind them. I love anything that's original coming out, and people that share the same interests and are putting out really cool products. And, from me to you face to face, thank you very much. I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into it, man.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, I appreciate the appreciation because, like I said, we're a small team, but passionate film fans. Like, we're not just business people looking to make a buck. We're here to
Right.
turn our passion into a product to share, and an experience to interact with. I mean, that's really just sort of the core, mission statement. I keep on saying the word mission statement, but it really is. It's a mission.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to have a plan. You got to have a reason. And we love this stuff, and we want to keep on making projects like this, and we plan to, and we got to do it right in order to have the privilege and the respect to be able to have people back it and keep it going. But we definitely don't want to be like some faceless entity. I'm glad you appreciate that there are human beings here trying our best.
With the movie that you did, I'm a huge fan. I can't wait to to be able to watch the future endeavors that you have going on. And this is concluding everything, David. And honestly, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time. This has been amazing.
Well, I appreciate your support, your interest, your enthusiasm, and obviously you clearly, people can tell if people really care about this stuff, if it means a lot to them. It's just the enthusiasm, the willingness to share knowledge and not to judge about it, and to talk about the stuff that you love and just be enthusiastic. It's like, listen, I love this. You should love it too, because here are the reasons. And, maybe we could talk about it, and I could point out why these things are great. And it all comes down to our comfort food, and wanting to share the things that make us real happy for different reasons. And so that's kind of what In Search of Darkness is through and through. And you bringing attention to that, and use that movie being a jumping off point to discover all this new stuff, or revisit the stuff that you've seen or haven't seen in a long time or knew about, but now you want to explore more. That's kind of what all this stuff is about. So I appreciate you, pointing the camera at it.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go. I've taken up more time than I even asked. David, like I say, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. The Lo-Fi Horror Guy, David Weiner. Check out In Search of Darkness 2, In Search of Tomorrow. Anything else they have going on, go and follow his pages. And
80shorrordoc.com between now and midnight on Halloween.
Beautiful. Oh, beautiful. Okay, so it's up for grabs. Is it was $60 or it was $70, right?
Well,
we've
got some $69.99, I think.
Okay. All right, got it. And then there's different, for executive producer, right? And all that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's different options, right?
There are different options. So yeah, I mean, if you want a fan level backer, that's, it's not just a movie. You get 3 posters, you get the soundtrack, you get an enamel pin, you got the slip cover, there's a booklet in there. You also get a digital copy of In Search of Darkness 1. You also get the option, if you didn't get a physical copy of In Search of Darkness 1, you can add that as an added extra for $15 to get the original movie, the first one. Because there are a lot of people who only got to see it on Shudder or never got to see it at all. So you get to see it digitally. You can have it in your hand if you want it, and it's all. But yeah, there are higher level of support if you want to be an executive producer, an associate producer, that kind of stuff. There are other levels of participation if that's something that you're interested in.
Yeah, crazy. So cool. I like I say, thank you so much, and I can't wait for In Search of Darkness 2.
Thank you so much, sir. Good talking to you.
Yeah, you as well. Stay safe, and you take care now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Dun, 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 dun. He's a lo-fi horror guy. Yeah, he's kind of a guy, but he is so lo-fi a horror guy. Yeah.